Okay, good afternoon from the Holy Land. Today's daf is Mem Beis. We are up to Mem Aleph Amid Beis. It's a involved daf today, held cup. It's a lot of Yesodis that we know about, but it's still challenging nonetheless. Okay, we've established that a person is on a land for 3 years without a macha, and he claims that he bought the land. He's not expected to have a shtar. So chazaka sheyeshi mataina havi chazaka. What about the following case? A person is on the land for 1 year. He then goes ahead and sells it to a second person, who sells it to a third person. So let's give names, okay? So Ruvain was the previous owner of Harry. Harry was the previous owner of the land, right? Ruvain now has the land. He sells it to Shimon, who sells it to Levi. Okay, he sells it to Levi. Comes along Harry to Levi and says, "Guess what? What are you doing on my land?" So he goes, "What are you talking about?" 3 years went by. It was in the Rishus of Ruvain, the Rishus of Shimon, and the Rishus of and now I had a year. So we had 3 years, right? Is that mitzdarif? Is that mitzdarif for a full chazaka, and therefore Harry's out? Or no, Harry can taina, you know what? The reason I didn't make a macha was because why? Because it was 3 separate pieces of land, and I didn't think it was considered like a problem. So that's the case. Says the Gemara, Shloisha, we're 5 lines up on the bottom of Memala from the base. Shloisha lekuchos mitzdarfos. 3 lekuchos are mitzdarf. So over here we're having Reuven, Shimon, Velevi. They'll be mitzdarif that Harry would lose the land. Right, they would lose the land. So Levi would now have the land. Amarav, v'kulam b'shtar. Kulam doesn't mean all of them. Ruvain doesn't have to have a shtar. Ruvain, if he has a shtar, there's nothing to talk about. We're talking about Shimon Levi. So when Shimon purchases the land, a call goes out that Shimon's on the land. So therefore, Harry should have known about it. When Levi bought it from Shimon, right, then a call went out that somebody else is on this land. So even though Harry, we knew originally was the owner of the land, Harry had ample time to go ahead and make a macha. Masha Enkain, if Harry did not know about it, for example, let's say that there were only Eidim to the transaction between Reuven and Shimon, and Eidim to the transaction between Shimon and Levi, then a coil does not go out, and then what? Harry would retain the land. So if there's a coil, so therefore, Harry would be informed that the land is being muchzakin, even though it's 3 different people. Then it would be a good chazaka, and Harry would lose. On the other hand, if Harry would be unknowns to Harry that the land was going ahead and being transferred to other people, and thus there was 3 people on the land, and he would know about it, then it's not a good chazaka. Says Rav, I'm qualifying that. It has to be that Shimon Velevi bought the land al yedei shtar, and the shtar is going to create a coil, and therefore Harry knew about it, and he should have made a macha. Masha Enkain, if it's Aiden on the transaction between Reuven and Shimon Velevi, then Harry was not expected to know about it because there was no coil, and thus not to make a macha, and thus not a good chazaka. How are we doing, guys? We're good? Good? We're all good? Says the Gemara, Amarav, the kulim bishtar. Lememra, the Sava Rav, Shtar Islay Kala, and therefore it's a good chazaka, so Harry should have known about it. The Eidim, less Lu Kala, and Eidim don't have a coil, and Eidim do not have a coil. That's okay. Says the Gemara, 1 second. V'ha'ama Rav, ha'moiches sada be'eidim, if someone sells a field be'eidim, goyvim nechasim mishubadim. In other words, obviously, when you sold that field, a coil went out that there was on this field that you bought this field, there was a coil that it was sold. So now, if someone goes ahead, rips away a field, you would be able to collect from nechasim mishubadim. Why? Why would you be able to collect from nechasim mishubadim? Obviously, because a coil went out that there's a lien on the field. So you see a coil, this does create a coil. So by the case of chazaka, Rav saying Eidis what is Eidim is not a coil. Yet by Mechira he's saying what? It is a coil, and therefore buyer beware. There's a coil. You should know that there's a shibud over here. So kasha guys, chazaka to purchasing a field says Hasam lekuchos inu afsidu anafshu. Over there, lekuchos, they're being mafsid on themselves. In other words, when there is a coil is created, there's a coil created, and the coil does not necessarily be what the strongest coil in the world. It's what's called by the Rashbam a coil memela. A coil memela will not go ahead what and be a reason for Harry to find out about it. However, in other words, if you have a little coil out there, if you look for it, you'll find it. If you don't look for it, you won't. The publicity of this, guys, is a kleiner publicity. I don't know how you say publicity in Yiddish. The publicity of Eidim is a very small publicity. So watch. As we all know, if someone's looking for something and there's a small publicity, they'll find it. On the other hand, if someone's not looking for something and there's small publicity, they won't find it. Is Harry going to be looking for what? Whether people are being machzik on his land or not? Of course not. Of course not. He's not going to be looking for that. What about if you're buying a land and you want to make sure that the land is for sure, you're going to go ahead and look and check, right? So therefore, it says the Lashon of the Gemara, Amid Aleph, Inu, the Lekuchais, Afsid Anavshayu. There was enough of a coil publicity that he could have found out. That's the difference between the two. So by Eidim, we have a chilik between Mechira and Halva. By Mechira, right, he should have checked it out. By Mechira, he should have checked it out. Except by Chazaka, you won't expect him to check it out. One more din, and then we'll just summarize. Fred the Gemara, Umi Amar Rav Hachi. Does Rav really say so? Does Rav really say that if you sell karka be'edim, right, that there is a coil, and therefore you can collect from Mishubadim? Umi Amar Rav Hachi Batanan, Hamal be'eschavere b'shtar, someone lends to his friend with a shtar, goiva min chosim Mishubadim, then the halva, the malva will be it's taken away. You'll be able to collect from the chasim mishubadim. Al yedei edim goyvim min chasim b'nei chayrin. If the halva took place by edim, then you can only collect from the chasim b'nei chayrin. You can't collect from a land that had a shibud on it. Now, what you just told me that edim do not create a coil. If you have a shtar, it creates a coil. Therefore, people know about it, and therefore, buyer beware. If it's edim by a halva, then what? If the halva took place al the Eidim, then there's no buyer beware. Why is there no buyer beware? Because there's no coil. So we got a problem. You just told me that Eidis does create a coil. And therefore what? If you go ahead and you sell a field with Eidim, they can collect from. But you see by a halva, it's not true. By halva, if the halva took place just al yedei Eidim, you don't collect from the Nechas Mishubadim because there is no coil. So how do you reconcile halva to mechira? Mechira, yes, kol. Halva, not kol. Fred the Gemara, what are we talking? Rav Tanu Polig. If you can tell me Rav is a Tana, and he argues, and he holds that what? That even by halva, you would collect from the chasim shabadim. You can't say that. For Rav Shmuel Damit Travayu, milva al peh, stam milva al peh with edis, ain't a goyva, leimin al yarshim, v'leimin al lukuchas. We're going to see at the end of the Masech that they do collect from yarshim, but they don't collect what from lukuchas. They don't collect what from lukuchas. So what do you see? Why don't they collect from Lekuchais? Because there's no coil. And this is speaking about halva. So you got a stira. Says Gemara, Milva Zvina Karamis. You're asking a kasha from halva where it is not a coil to a zvina where it is a coil. There's a big difference. Okay, so before we get to the teretz, you Rav just told me that Eidis by a mechira you collect from the shubadim. If you collect from the shubadim, obviously the person could have known about it and avoided buying this land. Correct? If you're collecting mishubadim, buyer beware, you should have been aware and not bought this land. That's by mechira. By a halva, no, you don't. So you see that halva, there is no coil. Here there is a coil. That's a stira. Says Gemara, it's not comparable. One is by mechira, the edis is there, the coil is there, and therefore he should have been careful and watched. By halva, we're going to see there's no coil whatsoever. Why? Here's the reason. Milva zvina karamis. Milva kika Yosef. When a person borrows money, bitzina Yosef, he doesn't want to know that he's hard on his luck. He doesn't want to know that he needs money. What happens when people find out a guy needs money to his land? They start circling around like the vultures, right? Ki hechi deloi litzil nechasei aleha. His nechasim will become what? Worth much less. Why? Because people know he needs the money. When you need the money, right, you'll go ahead and take much land. So when you go ahead and borrow be'edis, guys, there's no koil. It's done bitsina. It's done quietly. You don't want any publicity whatsoever. And Mamela, if you're malva be'edim, no person could possibly know about it to be aware, and therefore you can't collect the property. Zvina, however, what about a sale? Man dezavid, when you have nechasim for sale, you want to publicize as much as possible, and that you get what? Maximum amount of buyers, says the Gemara. And therefore, if a person, when dezavin, ara b'frahes yezavin, kehefi the lefi klekala, that a kol should go out. So you have a beautiful distinction between what? Between the two. Beautiful distinction between the two. By halva, einachinami edim, since it's done bitsina, because you don't want people to know that you're in monetary straits, therefore there's no coil. However, where you're selling a land and you want to publicize as much as possible in order to facilitate more buyers, the mailer there's a coil. So it comes out, we can go ahead and go ahead and summarize the sugya this way. If it comes to shtar, if not edim, if it comes to shtar, whether it's a mechira or it's a halva, you can collect from mishubadim, because a shtar creates a coil. A shtar creates a coil. Guys, I'll take a look. Take a look at Mem Aleph Amid Beis, 4 lines up in the Rashbam. Why does a shtar create a coil? 4 lines up in the Rashbam. Mem Aleph Amid Beis. Shem Asvin lekoisvoi ulechoismoi v'akol shaimim. You gather together to write it and to sign it, Eidim and scribes, and therefore there's publicity, there's a coil. That's the difference between shtar and edus. Good. So now, where there's a shtar, it doesn't make a difference. If it's a mechira al yidei shtar, or if it's a halva al yidei shtar, yesh la coil umamela goyvim and nechas mishubadim, buyer beware. Everyone would know about that land. That's when it's a bishtar. The edim, that's where it gets a little tricky. The edus, we're going to make a distinction between mechira and halva. Right? By edus, we're going to make a distinction between mechira and halva. By halva, where a person doesn't want other people to know he's in monetary straits, the halva is going to take place clandestinely in a secret location, a bunker underneath the ground, deep, hermeneutically sealed in a mayonnaise jar. Right? You go ahead to make sure that what? No one knows about it. And memela, no koil. And therefore, you can't collect from the chasim mishubadim. That's by halva. By mechira, where a guy sells the land, he wants to publicize it, so everyone knows that what that he sold the land. If you sold the land, you have to be aware. Maybe there's a shibud on this land, and therefore what? Who the avsar nafshi? You the lekeach, by not being careful, you're the one who was caused yourself the problem. You should have been careful and not checked it out whether what the story is, because the coil was there. Since there was publicity, the coil was there. Guys, good? Okay, Baruch Hashem. I like that when I say it's good, I understand it. Baruch Hashem, that's good. Says the Gemara Vaita. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, halt cup. 2 cases. Again, this is a case of tziruf. Guys, this is a case where we're going to mitzarif shani chazaka with different people. So Tana Rabbanan. Achlo ha'av. Now, the land was owned by Harry. Good. Harry is always going to be either he's going to be the ma'arer or the machzik. Okay. In this case, Harry is going to be the ma'arer. He's going to be the one complaining. So, achlo ha'av shana. Ruvain goes ahead and eats for a year. He consequently dies. V'haben shtayim, and now his son Shimon eats for 2 years, a total of 3 years. Ha'av shtayim, Ruvain for 2 years. Uben shana, and Shimon for a year. Ha'av shana, Ruvain for a year. V'haben shana, Shimon for a year. And Shimon then goes ahead and sells it to Levi. V'lokeach shana, harizu chazaka. That's a chazaka. So therefore, Harry would not be able to go ahead and get back his land, because three years went by. 3 years went by. Now, what we need really is the last case. The last case, in addition to a father and a son, we have that Shimon sold it to Levi. There was a sale. So therefore, obviously, there must have been what? There must have been a coil. When there's a chazaka, fellas, it must be that what? There's a coil. Again, what does a coil accomplish? that you, Harry, knew about it, and the fact that you knew about it and were in Meicha is a sign that what? That it belongs to Reuven, Shimon, and consequently Levi. Okay, that's the key. Again, since you're telling me there's a koil that Lekeach bought it, and nonetheless it's a chazaka, it means Harry found out about it because there was a koil, and he still wasn't Meicha, and therefore what? He lost the land. Guys, good? Next. Here's the case where Harry's the machzik, guys. Harry is the one sitting on the land. Achla b'fnei av. Harry eats a year in front of Ruvain. Shana b'fnei ben shtayim, and he eats 2 years in front of Shimon. B'fnei av shtayim, 2 years in front of Ruvain. Harry is being machzik. B'fnei ben shana, and between Levi, Shimon a year. B'fnei av shana, right? Harry's in that land, and Ruvain watches him. B'fnei ben shana, Shimon watches him, but now Shimon sells the land to Levi, and Levi watches this. Harizu chazaka. That's a chazaka. So Harry now has the land. Now, guys, 1 second. In order for Harry to have a land, it has to be what? There was no macha, correct? Guys, listen up, listen up. In order for Harry to get the land, there can't be no macha. If you're telling me that a sale creates a macha, a coil, right? Creates a coil. Nimsa, when Shimon sold the field to Levi, right? He sold the field to Levi, and you're on the land, and there's a coil that he sold the land. In other words, I'm making a statement. It's not your land. I'm selling it. You, Harry, are sitting on this land, right? And I now, Shimon is selling the land to Levi. I'm not on the land, but I know it was my father's, and I'm selling it to Levi. If you're telling me that Lekeach has a coil, so I announced to Harry, you're on my land. Look what I did. I sold it. If I sold it, obviously it's not your land. That's the stira. In the ratio, you're telling me that what? It must be that what? It has a coil. And Harry, the owner, found out about it and therefore didn't say anything. Therefore, it's a good chazaka. In the Sefer, you're telling me, what? You're telling me, even though you sold the land, it's a good chazaka? If it has a coil, you announce to Harry the machzik, Harry, it's not yours. I sold it. Got it? That's the stira. That's the stira. Says the Gemara. Okay. If you're going to tell me, like Keach is leikala, when a person goes ahead and sells land, there's a koil. Right? There was no bigger macha than Shimon selling it to Levi. So how can you tell me Harry can be machzik in the land? Amarav Papa, Ki Tanya Hahi. When did we learn that Harry is machzik in the land? In other words, fellas, it's not speaking. This is based upon the Rashbam. It's not speaking where the only land sold was the land that Harry was on. Shimon sold to Levi all of the estate. Stam, he sold the whole kit and caboodle. Included in that kit and caboodle is that land. Then the coil is not strong. When he sells that specific land, then he would know. Harry the Machzik should know. When he's selling all the land and it's not specified that specific land, then the coil that went out that he sold his father's land is not enough for Harry to go ahead and know to hold on to the shtar. And therefore it's a good chazaka. Okay, a lot to digest. A lot to digest. A little more to digest. This says the Mishnah. Ha'umonim, craftsmen, the shutafin, partners, v'arisin, sharecroppers, v'aputropin, state appointees, by Bezdin to take care of the chasim of Yisayimim, ein lehem chazaka. Okay. Pashtus, shutfin, risin, aputropsin, ein lehem chazaka. I'll get to in a second. A shutif in a field, the fact that you're on it for 3 years, so you had a right to be there, and the guy didn't say anything, is not a chazaka. A risin, a sharecropper, you have a right to be there, and you ate the payers, not a chazaka. Aputropin, you have a right to be there, not a chazaka. In other words, these people have a right to be on that field, and therefore they do. Being there is not a chazaka. What about umnin? So says the Rashbam, guys. For umnin, inside, bale umnis, Shemoilichin lehem bebeisam letaking kalim. They bring home to their houses kalim, kigoin savoyim, dyers, kaifsim, launderers, chayotim, tailors, sarki begodim, combers, shetoinim lekuachi biyadi. They say that what it's theirs. They tiny it's theirs. Ein lehem chazaka. There's no chazaka. V'loy becheska shalom ma'iri is mechadish the Rashbam. It's not speaking about chazaka shal shanim. The stam umin leishayach el b'metatlan. Stam and umin is not dealing with land. Stam and umin is dealing with metatlan. Becheska shal shanim leinemra el b'mekarkoi. And cheska shal shanim is only said by karka. Aval metatli mishu hu muchzik b'shal chaveroi afilu sha'achash shanu royim sheyotzim mitachas yadai. See this pen? You see this pencil? Nice pencil. Look at it. You know, I got it from Dove. Dove, Adam said a half hour ago, this belonged to Dove. Now I have it. By metaltalin, if you're muchsik in something, then what? Then it's yours. That was the chiddush of karka. That again, Islam is being muhsik is not enough. Ramban. So you have something in each hand that's yours. Okay, very good. Let's say I'm a fixer of broken mechanical pencils. That's my job. 2 hours ago, an hour ago, people said this was Dove's. I now have it. Dove comes and says, "Where's my pencil?" I said, "I bought it from you." I don't have a chazaka on that. I don't have a chazaka. Why? Because since I'm an umin, usually the job of an umin is to fix that. That would explain it being a myrishus. And therefore, since it was Eidos that was Dove's, and Stam is like, his tiny was broken, and why else is by me? I'm fixing it, right? Then you don't have a chazaka. That's what it means. So according to Rashbam, the case of umnim is totally different than the case of shutfin or arisin or putrapsin, which are cheska shalashanim. It's a unique case of what of now. What about? So that's the chiddush over here. That's the chiddush over here. Okay. Rambam disagrees. Rambam says it's speaking about umnim on karka for 3 years. And then the Mishnah is consistent. However, based upon this difficult explanation of the Rashbam, guys, look at the Rashbam. You see the Rashbam says varisin. I'd say about 15 lines up. Make it 12. Right above that, 2 lines, it says Ubeseda Mishnus Rabbeinu Gershom. You have that? The Risin, go 2 lines above, 1 line above a Risin in the middle. Ubeseda Mishnus Rabbeinu Gershom Hachi Garsinan Hashudfin Vaputrapin Varisin Aval Umnin Loik Tani. They don't learn an Umnin. You know why? Vahachi Havi Maskan Begemara. The Kuliyama Yesh Shutif Shein Lachazaka. The Kidin V'Shuf Ein Lachazaka Koshkein Umnin. If a shutif doesn't have chazaka, kolshken and umin doesn't have a chazaka. So they don't learn umnim, not for the reason that I gave, not for the reason that it's different, that it's not speaking about 3 years. It's just poshit. If a shutif, we're going to see in a second, doesn't have a chazaka, so certainly what? If a shutif doesn't have a chazaka, certainly an umin doesn't have a chazaka. Okay, so back in the Mishnah. Loy ish chazaka b'nichsei ishtoi. In the nichsei miloig, he eats 3 years of payris, it's not a chazaka. Nor was a woman, right? The husband will go ahead. Let's say he has a piece of field that's providing mezainis for her. Her eating mezainis for 3 years is not one a chazaka. Right? That none of these by ben and a father, it's not going to go ahead. We're going to see in the Gemara what the reason is. When do we say all these din of shalosh shanim is b'machzik? When people give a present, or brothers who divide a field, if a ger dies in this field is hefker, and a person makes is machzik a kinyan chazaka, what would kinyan chazaka be? Noyel, he makes a door, makes a lock. The gader puts up a fence, uparatz, or goes ahead and breaks the wall down. Kol shehu harisu chazaka. In other words, the Rashbam learns that until this point in time, we've been discussing about shalosh shanim chazaka. But be aware, there's another mitzias of kinyan chazaka. So, for example, in these cases where you give him matana, it has nothing to do with shalosh shanim. Where you makabel matana, when you go ahead, lay chazaka kni, you go make a chazaka. When you makabel the brothers divide up. When he makes a kinyan. When does the person that's the agera makes a kinyan? So there's another chazaka, not a chazaka of raya, but a chazaka of bailas, a chazaka of kinyan. We until now we've been speaking chazaka of raya. It's a raya that it must be mine, you to make a macha. But however, there is another chazaka called chazaka kinyan in these things where it's nothing to do with cheskah shalashana. That's what the Rashbam explains. Hamid Beis. Avu de Shmuel v'Levi, Avu de Shmuel, and according to the Rashbam, Levi's friend, Tanu shutuf ein loy chazaka, the kol shekein umin, and this is why they weren't goyrus. Rabbeinu Gershom wasn't goyrus in the Yom Aleph. A shutuf ein lo chazaka, right? Okay, so let's see Rashbam, guys. Tanu mas nisan, shutif hashutafin v'aputrapsin, but don't avul umin loy. Tani, don't learn umin. The kol shekein the ein lo chazaka. Certainly, an umin doesn't have chazaka. The ein lo chelik klal. He doesn't have a chelik to be there. The name of migu the hoyla chelik boy kana mechavero eschel koi. Elavade letake nitin loy. What's the svara fellas of shutfin having chazaka? What's that? The shutfin having chazaka. There's a svara to say, since he has a piece of the action, he was koine the other piece from his friend. Yet we don't say that. Again, by shutf, there's a svara to say, listen, you own part of it, I own part of it. Maybe you left me alone. Maybe now I bought the other part of it, and therefore I have chazaka. And yet you don't say that. So kol shekain by umin, where you can't explain why in the world he would have a chazaka, because he has no chelik in the first place. So it's totally unnecessary to go ahead and be goyris umin. So therefore, Avu de Shmuel v'Levi Tanu, our Mishnah, they didn't learn umin. They just learned shutuf ein lechazaka. The kol shekain umin. Shmuel Tani umin ein lechazaka. But Shmuel says no, umin ein chazaka. Aval shutuf yesh lechazaka. And Shmuel goes according to his reasoning, as we'll see, that a shutuf does have a chazaka. But the Shmuel tamei, Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. Dama Shmuel, hashutafin machzikim ze al ze. Shutafim, they could make a chazaka one on the other. If one is machzik in the chelik of the other person for 3 years, it's a good chazaka. Umeidim ze al ze. And they can testify on the chelik of the person to keep it in his rishus. Another person comes from the street and says, your Shimon, it's really mine. Ruvain the Shutif can testify that Shimon belongs to him. The Nasim Shemesacha zel is there, and each one could be a Shemesacha on the other. If a Shutif gives somebody something to watch, and it's stolen, he has to din of a Shemesacha. Where's the schar? Because just like you give me something to watch as a Shutif, I have also, you'll watch my thing. So that's like that hana that you will watch my thing is schar to mechayiv mi b'geneva. So therefore, 3 dinim. Yes, chazaka. They could be testify, and yes, din shemesacha. But Shmuel, who said that a shutif has a chazaka, therefore he would have to learn on Mishnah umin ein chazaka. If you learn shumin ein chazaka, it's unnecessary to umin. Madach shutif has a chelik in the action. Nonetheless, we don't say the svara that he bought that chelik and he has a chazaka. Memela, watch the umin is not necessary to say. But if you hold in the fact that like Shmuel does, that shutif does have chazaka, and therefore you could say I did purchase it, it's necessary to learn umin in the Mishnah that you don't have a chazaka. And then along the way, we just threw out 2 other dinim, a din of edis, believed, and a din of shemesacha. Good. Those are the differences. Rami le Rav Abel Rabbi Yehuda. Bima'ar. Now, if you look at Bach, he changes the girsa from Ma'arata, which means a cave, to the Ma'atzarta, which means a wine press. So he asked the Shaila Rabbi Yehuda, and a wine press. Simcha quoted me a Yaivitz, and the Yaivitz says, keep the girsa of Ma'arata. And we're speaking about a time where the people, they're giving service to the Jews, not letting them learn. And therefore they had to hide in caves. And it shows their chavivus Torah, despite the fact they were in caves, the lashon is they were oisik b'Torah b'chol chavivim aleihem divrei Torah. That we see how Divrei Torah was so chaviv on them that even ma'arata, that they had to hide in caves from the enemy. So keep the gersa, that they had to hide in the caves from the enemies, and this is what the stira was. The Beir mi amar Shmuel shutaf yesh lechazaka. The Shmuel really say that one shutaf can have a chazaka. V'amar Shmuel shutaf kiyore b'shustami. A shutif is like he goes down in rishus. In other words, I'm allowing you to go down to the field. Lav l'meimra the shutif ein lechazaka. Is it lav l'meimra not to say that a shutif does not have chazaka? When it says a shutif, guys, goes down the rishus. By going down rishus, look, Rashbam Kloimar, Kilu Nasan Lachavere Rishus, Vitzivuhu Li Yosbim Kaimai, Kedin Aristami. So, in other words, look, we have a field b'shutis. I'm letting you go down like an aris. Aris doesn't have chazaka, guys. What did the Mishnah say? Aris has no chazaka. We can explain you being there for the percentage, a third, a quarter, a half, whatever it is. We can explain it. So you're telling me a shutif allows the guy down, allows him to go down like an aris. So obviously what? A shutif ain't la chazaka. That's the stira. That's the stira. So in one hand he said shutif yesh la chazaka. How do you know that? Because he was goyris on Mishnah umin. And therefore he had to say umin because the shutif yesh la chazaka. On the other hand, by telling me a shutif is kiyorid rishus dami, kiyorid rishus means to go down like an aris, and an aris doesn't have chazaka. So you have a stirim in eubei. Lav the maybe the shutif and chazaka like kasha. Like it doesn't. It's not fair. Hadinachas lekula if he goes down to the whole field. Hadinachas lepalga if he goes down to half the field. Imrila lahagisa, imrila lahagisa. Okay, fellas. So now we have a stira, guys. Look at me, please look at me. Here's a stira. Yesh chazaka, ein chazaka in Shmuel. We're giving it teretz. On one case, he goes down to the whole field, and the other field goes down to half the field, or he goes down to half the field or the whole field. In other words, you can learn all or half to explain chazaka or not chazaka. So the teretz is that what? One place is speaking where he went down for the whole, one piece is speaking down for the half. Sometimes saying he goes to speak down from the whole, it is a chazaka. Half is not a chazaka. Or he goes down to half, it is a chazaka, and whole is not a chazaka. Okay? That's the teretz. Just to fill in the blanks. Okay? Just to fill in the blanks a little bit. Now, if you go down to the whole field, in a million years, would the other shutif allow you exclusive use of the field? In other words, I want payris every year. I want a return. I'm going to allow you to go down to the whole field, and I get nothing for 3 years? Ella must be what? I sold you the field. Yesh chazaka. Guys, that's what it really works. Guys, right? Look, I'm allowing you to go down to the whole field. So obviously you've been there for 3 years, and I got nothing for 3 years. It must be what? I sold it to you. Yesh chazaka. Good. And therefore, if I allow you to go down to half of the field, even if it's the better half of the field, right? So you're eating the better half of the field now. I'll eat the better of the field another year. So you being there is not a raya. So that's the first way to learn. Nochas the kula yesh chazaka, because there's no way I'm going to let you do it. Palga, I'll let you do it, and therefore no chazaka. The other way to learn is no. The other way to learn is that in the sec ain't chazaka the kula. I'll allow you to use it for the 3 years because I'm going to get used for 3 years. In other words, tit for tat. You're going to use it for 3 years. I'm going to use it for 3 years. So therefore, me allowing you to be there for 3 years is not a chazaka because I'm waiting for my turn. So now why? What? Why would it be chazaka for half the field? There's no way I'm going to allow you to use the better half of the field for 3 years and not get anything from it. So it must be the what that I sold it to you. It must be the chazaka. So those are the 2 ways to learn the tzadzeh and the tzadzeh. Okay. So again, one more time, we have a stira. Shmuel says shutif yesh lechazaka. In the Matzarto, Marafto, the Rabbi Shmuel said that that a shutif is yored rishus. Yored rishus is masmi goes like an oris. An oris what? An oris doesn't have chazaka. L'meimah the shuf ain't chazaka. How do you answer the stira? Like kasha. Hadinachas the kula. In one lashon, the first lashon, like let's say it is a chazaka. In the second lashon, it's not a chazaka. Hadinachas the palga. In the first lashon, it's not a chazaka. In the second lashon, it is a chazaka. Imila lahai gisa, v'imila lahai gisa, each one going to different sides. How is that? Good? Okay, very good. Ravina Ama Hava Denachas Lekula. In both cases, he went down to the whole field. He went down to the whole field. So he went down to the whole field. Why is in one place a chazaka and the other place not? Like Hasha, Hadis Beidin Chaluka. If you have a field that you have more than 4 amas, guys, let's go back to the first parak. Remember, Chatzah Shveish Medin Chaluka, 4 amas to Zet, 4 amas to Zet. Good? Yesh Bedin Chaluka. So you have a field, Yesh Bedin Chaluka. There's no way in the world I'm going to let you go ahead. What? Since we can divide it up, I'm not going to let you take the all the part. So therefore, 3 years is chazaka. It's so small, the person's not makbid, and therefore there's no right that I sold it to you since it's a small parcel of land. Okay, now let me give you the rest of the Gemara. Is a lot of information. We had this in Bava Metzia, guys. You have a field. Now a person goes down and cultivates this field that he's not supposed to. I own the field. Heshi goes down to the field and cultivates the field. Now the field. If Heshi this is a field that I wanted cultivated for trees. Heshi plants trees. So basically what Heshi is doing is what I would have done in the first place. It's without Rishus, it's what I would have done in the first place. But since it's Memela what I would have done, Heshi gets Ka'aris. He gets like a Shia Krappa. Whatever the percentages of the town, whether it's a quarter, a third, or a half, Heshi's going to get that. What happens if it's a field that is for vegetables? And by planting trees, it's not good for them. Right, then Heshi will get he's Yadel Tachtoina. He's going to get the lower hand. If it's expenditures is more than the profit, he'll get the profit. If the profit's more than expenditures, he'll get what the expenditures. Whatever. That's Yadel Tachtoina. That's where he goes down. Beli Rishus. That's where he goes down. That's where he goes down. What? That's where he goes down. Beli Rishus. Okay. Now, what about if you go down Birishus? So if you go down Birishus, it doesn't make a difference what the field is. Whether it's a field for trees or Yerakis, you're going to get Ka'aris. Again, if you go down Birishus, you're going to get Kafil. Okay? So again, Shaloi Birishus, then if it's trees, get Ka'aris, trees, vegetables, Yadel Tachtaina. You go down Birishus, whether it's trees or trees, vegetables, you're going to get Ka'aris. Now, what happens? You get to the field and there's a mature plant there. Let's get this fully grown stuff. So if it's Shaloi B'Rishus, you don't get anything. If it's B'Rishus, then you get what? Then you get, that's Shmuel's din, guys. Shmuel says we'll treat a shutif ki yoyer B'Rishus. So therefore, A, he'll get, whether he plants trees in a tree field or trees in a Yerakis field, he'll get karis. And B, any mature tree that's there, any mature plant that's there, he'll get a percentage of that as well. So that's what Shmuel means now. So we just did it outside. Let's see it inside. Again, I just look at this long Rashbam. you're going to get the Gemara says in 3 lines. Kufa, Shmuel, Shutif ki yoyer b'rishus dami. Shutif has a din of yoyer b'rishus. My kamash v'lon, Shutvis ein lo chazaka, that a Shutvis doesn't have chazaka because he's ka'aris. Leima Shutif ein lo chazaka. So spell it out. If you went down b'rishus like an aris, ein lo chazaka. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Ravu, Loimer, Shenoitel b'shvach, Hamagia l'ksafim, he'll go ahead what? And take from the mature plants. Magia l'ksafim means it's ready to be harvested. It's shoulder height. It's ready to be harvested. So even, as opposed to a person who goes down Shaloi B'Rishus who doesn't get, he will get. That's Shmuel's din. That's what he's telling you. By saying he goes down B'Rishus, he'll get from the mature plants, right? And the Sada Sheina Asolita Kesada Solita. And if he plants trees in a Yerakis plant, he'll still get like tree plant and be treated like an aris. That's what he's teaching you. That's what he's teaching you over that dinner.